Hey team, Blake here with Crushing Defeat Media. Welcome to another video. I got a request to record voiceover for the text-only parts of these videos. So I thought I would add a voiceover to this video here and see how it goes. Please let me know which you prefer or if it doesn't matter to you either way. Also, if you like the video, please consider sharing it with your network of people. Anyway, enough intro. Let's get into Dr. Curry versus Dr. Hughes.
Now, why are you here?
I am here because my ex-husband is suing me for an op-ed I wrote.
And how do you feel about that?
As this case continues, one thing has become very apparent.
That means it will happen again, no? You know, like I've seen the health class videos, like everyone else. And I got up in my car, I walked to the car, I didn't say anything, I made a point to not say, oh, it's okay, or anything like that. I just didn't say anything. I got up, I went to the car, I sat in my car, and I felt like I sat there forever. I didn't want to turn the key. I just leaned my head up against the window, and I remember just seeing my breath on the windshield.
My goal is the truth. My goal is the truth because it killed me that people that I had spoken with, that I had met with over the years, who maybe were in a not such a great position and they needed advice, and I gave them the best advice I could. All I could think of was that those people would think that I was a fraud and that I had lied to them.
These are some great actors. One may be more genuine than the other, but I will leave which up to you. Before I continue, I am not a doctor or a lawyer. These are just opinions. I do have a degree in psychology and sociology. Let's get into the topic at hand. Dr. Hughes testified for Amber's legal team, and Dr. Curry testified for Johnny's legal team. In the trial, Dr. Hughes got to follow Dr. Curry. So here we're making Dr. Hughes go first. Dr. Hughes says Amber has post-traumatic stress disorder and has been a victim of IPV.
I diagnosed Ms. Heard with post-traumatic stress disorder. What these tests show was that there was a high degree of serious violence perpetrated by Mr. Depp toward Ms. Heard. In order to meet criteria for post-traumatic stress disorder, you have to have an actual cause. It's one of the few diagnostic entities that we have to have a cause for, and the cause was the intimate partner violence by Mr. Depp.
There's more to Dr. Hughes' claims that Johnny was abusive toward Amber. Stay until the end for a bonus round. Dr. Hughes also says Amber was truthful when responding to psychological testing.
Now, I have really robust data that Ms. Heard is not malingering or feigning her psychological symptomatology.
Malingering. Exaggerate or feign illness in order to escape duty, work, or some other benefit. Feigning. Pretend to be affected by a feeling, state, or injury. Dr. Curry says Amber has combined borderline and histrionic personality disorder, and that she does not suffer from PTSD.
The results of Ms. Heard's evaluation supported two diagnoses: borderline personality disorder and histrionic personality disorder. I very specifically was assessing to determine whether post-traumatic stress disorder was present, and it was not.
Dr. Curry also says that it's not the job of psychologists to determine whether or not abuse occurred.
And you have not made any determinations, including any of opinions that Ms. Heard abused Mr. Depp or Mr. Depp abused Ms. Heard, correct?
Correct. That's outside of the scope of psychology.
Okay.
Which is why we also know that it's very inappropriate to
convey any sort of opinion about whether a crime occurred, whether abuse occurred.
Dr. Curry also states Amber was feigning during the testing and exaggerated her responses.
She approached it in a manner that very clearly minimized any psychological dysfunction. Not just that, but really presented herself as free of any problems. And she did so in a way that was very, very sophisticated, not obvious. Ms. Heard did not have PTSD, and there were also pretty significant indications that she was grossly exaggerating symptoms of PTSD when asked about them.
More detail on these exaggerations in my other video. There's a link in the description, but let's move on. Let's now do some side-by-side comparisons of their testimony, starting with Dr. Hughes.
I met with Ms. Heard for a total of about 29 hours.
So the evaluation, we spent 12 hours directly with one another.
I met with her for the first time in September 2019.
I met with Ms. Heard on 2 separate dates, December 10th and December 17th, 2021.
I saw her for 4 visits in my New York City office. And then I saw her twice over Zoom.
However, there were more hours involved in the evaluation with some breaks. So
it's interesting how this trial is a referendum on how men and women are currently treated in society. No opinion, you judge.
And every time you referred to the characteristic of a victim of intimate partner violence yesterday, you used the pronouns she or her, didn't you?
I was using the she and her pronouns in this case because my determination was, as I stated, that Ms. Heard was the victim of intimate partner violence.
And then you say difficult for victim to extricate herself. You go on to say that she can and she should. Over and over you use she, right?
I believe in this case I did because I was referencing this case where I found Ms. Heard to be the victim of intimate partner violence.
I'm very interested in what you think here. Was it really because Dr. Hughes was referencing Amber? Or was it because there is a prejudice that only women are victims of domestic and intimate partner violence? Let us know in the comments below.
That's a characteristic of abuse from women perpetrated against men. It's actually very, very common. About 90% of male victims of IPV have reported that a female partner who abuses them makes threats to report their partner as an abuser. It's less common for men to make that statement to female partners just because there's less potential consequence.
It's a common trauma symptom, isn't it, to not feel safe?
Sure.
And safety concerns are common among women who have been victimized, correct?
Women and men, yes.
Let's take a look at some more side-by-sides.
The second main opinion was that Ms. Heard demonstrated very clear psychological and traumatic effects or the exacerbation of trauma from those statements that Mr. Depp made through his attorney. There were 3 statements that we evaluated.
And you cannot testify whether Amber Heard suffered any emotional distress as a result of any of the defamatory comments that she has alleged Mr. Waldman made through Mr. Depp made through Mr. Waldman, correct?
What I can testify is that there was no indication of a decline in psychological functioning showing any injury since she's been with Mr. Depp.
And when you look at the consistency across the testing with the PAI, the TSI, and the MFAS, and there's research to support that when they go together, you have a higher degree of likelihood that this is not feigned PTSD, that this is not feigned symptomatology.
there are 20 kind of core symptoms that somebody can manifest with PTSD. You don't have to have all of them. Ms. Heard initially said that she had, in the first question, you say, do you ever have this, before you get to the more nuanced follow-up questions. When I asked that first question on each item, she initially said, yes, I have that, to 19 of the 20 symptoms. That's not typical even of somebody with the most disabling form of PTSD. When we eventually sort of dialed it down, she had 3 remaining symptoms. And having symptoms of any disorder is common for all of us.
Actually, if I look at the validity scores on the MMPI-2 that Dr. Curry administered, those scales are not elevated for exaggeration or malingering either.
No, actually, that was something unique. When she completed objective broadband measures, where the questions, you don't know what the questions are getting at, they seem completely random, she raised scores that indicated that she was trying to minimize any mental issues and appear completely free of pathology. When she took tests that asked questions that were specific to trauma, that's when you'd see these extreme exaggerations.
Did Dr. Jacobs assign any diagnoses to Amber Heard?
She did. Early on, she diagnosed her with panic disorder, and then later with post-traumatic stress disorder.
All right. And did Dr. Jacobs diagnose Amber Heard with borderline personality disorder?
No, she did not.
Histrionic personality disorder?
No, she did not.
And is that important?
That's very important.
So when you're providing therapy, you're in a very different role than an examiner. When you're the forensic examiner, you're just really looking at data to make a decision. When you're a therapist, you're an advocate for your client's well-being. And in fact, it's considered extremely unethical for a treating provider to ever provide opinion testimony like I'm providing, because it's so well known in our field that you're going to have an automatic bias for your client.
This was deemed, under your PAI, a critical item. And it says, sometimes my temper explodes and I completely lose control. How did that potential for aggression bear on your analysis?
Well, there's a few things. Number one, certainly Ms. Heard reported to me that in her relationship that would happen. Her anger and her affect regulation would become impaired. Number two, you have to look at the total scales where that scale is not elevated, so it would not be a major cause of clinical concern. Number three, she had 4 responses that she could say to this question. Mainly true, very true, mainly true, sometimes true or false. She chose sometimes true. So she's answering honestly about her experience.
But right away, you get a list of what's called critical items. And these are just some, a couple of the items, the statements that are presented that are more clearly symptom-based. Ms. Heard had the clearest code type was 3-6. So a 3-6 code type, a lot of that anger is expressed in this code type. There can be actually a lot of cruelty. Usually with people who are less powerful. Actually, when you see this code type, you want to, if you can, to follow up with subordinates, co-workers, people who may have observed their behavior more closely. A lot of suppressed and denied anger, but the anger is very present, will explode out, and a lot of issues in their close relationships.
And these are all self-reports, right?
Correct.
And so she scored a 0 on doing something violent because you were so upset.
Correct.
See that language? You knew Ms. Heard to do violent things when she's upset.
This test specifies how often have you had these symptoms in the last 6 months?
Just in the last 6 months.
Correct.
All right.
I do have to add here real quick that Johnny and Amber's divorce was finalized in 2017, and the first time that Dr. Hughes met with Amber was in September of 2019. So if you do the math, well beyond 6 months. So I don't know if that matters or means anything. I guess I'll leave that up to you.
But also, people with borderline personality disorder, it seems to be a predictive factor for women who implement violence against their partner. And one of the most common tactics that they'll use is actually physically assaulting and then getting harmed themselves. But mostly, we call this administrative violence. So essentially, this is saying that they'll make threats using the legal system. So
I could keep going back and forth for hours, but this video is already going to be too long. Let's look at some lawyer follow-up questions and then the answers given. Some of these are pretty amusing.
And you did an interview, I think, with Ms. Heard's mother, Paige.
That's correct.
And she told you that she loved Johnny even after Amber alleged abuse, correct?
She did.
All right.
Of the 5% that are IPV perpetrators that you've treated over the last 8 years, how many of these perpetrators have substance abuse issues? And your answer was?
I see that I answered with a figure of speech, a large portion.
Okay, thank you.
So what this references is the event you said was the worst, and what you have filled in here is 3 words, IPV by Johnny, right?
Correct.
All right. And then what happened is the next box, and you've not written a single thing in the box, right?
Because I've already spent 20 some odd hours with Ms. Heard, I know what goes in that box.
You did not disclose in any of the designations or your report that you had met with and had dinner and drinks with Mr. Depp, did you?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that one more time?
Yes,
That
you did
confused
not
me.
disclose in any of the designations or in your report that you had dinner and drinks with Mr. Depp, correct?
I did not disclose that I was interviewed by the legal team, no.
And then there's this question that says, how often has this happened in the past month? Number of times.
Correct.
And we talked about how these things are scored, and we looked at, you got to look at frequency and intensity, right?
Correct.
And you left the frequency box blank.
Well, no, if she said several times a month, then that's what the frequency is.
And you didn't fill that frequency box in at all. How often in the past month? You left that one blank again, right?
She tells me it happens at least twice a week, so certainly I could multiply 2 times 4 and put in 8.
Is frequency and intensity. How often in the past month? Again, you left it blank.
If you look on the right-hand box, that is where we are indicating the frequency and the severity.
Are you trying to resist that you didn't have dinner with Mr. Depp and drinks?
I'm not trying to resist that, but it's not quite right.
You
What
did
you're
have dinner with
stating.
Mr. Depp, did you not?
I did, with
And
his
you had
legal
drinks
team
with
and
Mr. Depp, did you not?
And what?
You had drinks with Mr. Depp, did you not?
Drinks were served. This was over 2 years ago. I may have had a drink with dinner, yes,
In fact, you thought you had a mule something, right?
possibly.
Again, we have, in the past month, how many of the important parts of event have you difficulty remembering? Number of important aspects. Didn't fill it up.
Well, I listed 2 specific incidents of where she indicates she has important aspects that are missing.
And you justified that it was okay in this case because it was a high-profile case.
That's not quite right. I justified it in this case. Actually, I sought consultation about it. First of all, the person who had retained his attorneys was unable to come to my office with his attorneys. And yes, this is a very visible case. It's been going on a very long time. And I understood that there would be a need to interview me and make an informed decision about my qualifications.
So just so you and I are on the same page, and I think we are, this gold standard test that I'm referring to is the CAPS 5.
That is correct.
That's the one that Dr. Curry administered, correct?
Correct.
All right. You didn't administer the CAP 5 until after you'd already diagnosed Amber Heard with PTSD, right?
She had PTSD in 2019. She had PTSD in the beginning of 2021 when I evaluated her. And then she had PTSD in December 27th, 2021 when I administered the CAPS. That's correct.
All right. I think I asked a much more narrow question than that.
You were, in fact, so excited about being involved in this case that you told your husband, even though this was a highly confidential matter, that you were going to be conducting the examination of Ms. Heard, didn't you?
That is not accurate.
You not only told your husband, but you told Ms. Heard that you told your husband, correct?
Ms. Bredoff, that is not accurate.
What is accurate?
You're incorrect. That is not correct.
Is your testimony today under oath that you did not tell your husband that you were going to be conducting the examination of Amber?
That is my testimony.
Let's go to page 306. So the question that was asked was because you brought muffins, you said, from your husband, right? You gave those to Ms. Heard, correct?
May I clarify what occurred so that we can stop talking about the muffins? What happened was that I was getting ready that morning. I frequently bring muffins to the office. My husband did happen to know that there was going to be a celebrity client coming in because on the mornings that occurs, which often occurs, we have to actually clear the office and move the staff to the other office. So yes, on the one hand, he was aware of that. I was getting ready. I asked him to go to the bakery near our house and pick up the muffins for me because I was running late. He often has to do that because I often do run late. He brought the muffins back to the house. I brought them into the office. Ms. Heard and I enjoyed the muffins together. I think I made a comment to her along the lines like, we can thank my husband. My husband got these for us today, meaning he purchased the muffins. We are now enjoying them because of him.
You're a professional witness, correct?
That's not correct.
No? You make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year testifying in court, correct?
Not testifying in court. I conduct thorough, comprehensive psychological evaluations of individuals who are involved in a court case.
So you're not being paid $100 an hour. How much are you getting paid?
I'm being paid $500 an hour.
$500 an hour. And that's what, and that's the bill you sent for your deposition, right? $500 an hour.
Correct.
Did you say on pages 305 and 306 that you frequently have examinations of high-profile clients? You want to just take a quick look and tell us?
What, 305, 306?
Yeah, that's where we're talking about it.
Is there a line you'd like me to look at?
You can start with 15, line 15, 305. Just read through that and tell me whether you said anywhere in there that you have a lot of high-profile examinations. You do this frequently.
Objection to improper impeachment.
I don't agree.
Hopefully you're finding the video helpful so far, and maybe even are being entertained a little bit. If so, please consider subscribing and sharing the video. I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. But before you make a decision and go, it's time for a bonus round.
Main opinion is that Ms. Heard's report of intimate partner violence and the records that I reviewed is consistent with what we know in the field about intimate partner violence.
Some slick language here. She wants the jury to hear Depp committed intimate partner violence. Listen to what's next.
You have not formed an opinion as to whether Mr. Depp committed intimate partner violence against Ms. Heard, correct?
Correct.
So she's not saying Johnny committed intimate partner violence. Got it.
The basis of the opinion was looking at all the dynamics in this relationship, looking at not just the hitting and the yelling, but looking at how much more hitting was done, looking at the coercive control, the obsessive jealousy, the possessiveness, the sexual violence, the choking behavior.
Sounds like she's just throwing accusations of violence around as hard facts to me. Am I missing something?
And you're not testifying to the veracity, the truthfulness of any of the allegations.
Correct.
So to be clear, Dr. Hughes is also not testifying to the truthfulness of the allegations of violence. Got it.
Any etiology was associated with the post-traumatic stress disorder?
So the etiology is the cause. In order to meet criteria for post-traumatic stress disorder, you have to have an actual cause. It's one of the few diagnostic entities that we have to have a cause for. And the cause was the intimate partner violence by Mr. Depp.
You have not formed an opinion as to whether Mr. Depp committed intimate partner violence against Ms. Heard, correct?
Correct.
So the cause of the PTSD diagnosis for Amber was the intimate partner violence that Dr. Hughes isn't testifying happened. Got it.
Excuse me, I choked a little at my water.
There are more of these in Dr. Hughes' testimony, but I will leave you with just a little bit more.
She also indicated, using, and as some of the testing showed, minor forms of violence, pushing, shoving, throwing objects.
Ms. Heard reported to you that she engaged in low levels of violence, correct?
Well, I don't think she said that. I think that was the characterization of knowing the types of minor and severe levels of violence.
Okay, I got it wrong. You consider low levels of violence?
Well, I considered what the literature and the research talks about, low levels of violence as opposed to severe levels of violence.
You reviewed photographs?
Yes.
All right. I'd like to put up PX 144. It's been published to the jury briefly. I'm going to keep it up very briefly. That photograph doesn't reflect a low level of violence, does it?
Well, that reflects a severe injury, I would agree.
Yeah. Why don't we go to PX 145? That's a severe injury that ended up with Mr. Depp on a gurney, correct?
That is a severe injury, correct.
Yeah.
Does that make Amber Heard a perpetrator of intimate partner violence?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
So that was one of the tasks that I had to consider. That was one of the hypotheses that I had to consider. And given all of the other data, that was not my opinion.
Well, what do you think? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Please again consider subscribing and sharing the video. And I'm also looking for feedback as to whether folks enjoy the voiced over version or the text version. So both exist for this video. So take a look and let me know what you think. Thanks again, team. We'll see you in the next video. Bye.